Welcome everybody, it's Debbie O'Neill of Scrummy Quick Designs, and I get a lot of questions about what is weeding vinyl, what tools do you need, how do you do it, what is reverse weeding. So in today's tutorial I'm going to go over all that with you. We're going to start with, of course, you will have some vinyl. This is Cricut Permanent Premium Vinyl, which I love because it works great on cups and glass objects and that type of thing, and then it is permanent on there so you can wash the item and it's not going to fall off. So that's what I've cut here. So you will, of course, have your vinyl and you'll put it on your Cricut mat and then you will cut it out. So you can see here I have a cut image. I think you guys can see that. Yep. Okay, so we've got a cut image here, and these two I also have cut images on. Now, you will need some tools to be able to do this process. So you will need what we call a weeding tool. And a weeding tool is a specially designed tool that has a little hook on the end. I use the Cricut one. It works great for me. There's a bunch of other different weeding tools that you'll see people talking about. You may want to try which ones work best for you, but I recommend the Cricut one because that's what I use and it works great for me. You also need a scraper. So of course I'm going to be using the Cricut scraper. The small one, because I'm working with smaller projects today, the smaller one will be great, but there is also the larger, extra large weeding tool, which I love to use when I have larger vinyl projects. Okay, so for application. So you will have a choice, whichever one you want. I also will have in my weeding kit, so to speak, I will have a Cricut True Control knife, because as I cut out a larger sheet of vinyl, I want to be able to trim this up to get it small enough that it's just around the edges of the cut shape. Okay, so that's what you see here. These were on a bigger piece and I just trimmed them away. So you can use the True Control knife, or you can peel this up and just use, you know, a pair of scissors and cut around it. So what you're going to end up with is a shape that's a little easier to work with than leaving it on a big piece. Plus, a lot of times you can then save the excess vinyl and use it on another project if you'll go ahead and just trim this away. And the next thing I want to show you is what is just regular weeding. What does that mean? When you weed something, you saw that it has the cut line on here where you've already cut it on your Cricut, and you would cut that based on which type of material you're cutting, right? So make sure you select the appropriate vinyl setting, because if you're working with iron-on, you do that a different way. If you're working with regular vinyl, there's different types of regular vinyl, and so make sure you have set that to the appropriate material setting so that it will cut cleanly for you. All right, so once you've got it cut, you've done your trimming, then you want to take your weeding tool. Now, regular weeding is just picking up the edge of this and then slowly peeling back. Ta-da. Okay, so that's weeding. That's all it is. This is the part you're not going to use, and you just throw this in the trash. If you're doing letters, sometimes you will have little centers of letters that you need to make sure that you get off. So be sure and look for that if you're working with the bigger shape. So let me just show you that again. So this is the word marshmallow. Now this has a lot of smaller letters on here, but they're still big enough I can weed doing this regularly because it is a regular straight edged font that I'm using. But what I like to do is rub my finger across the letters, and that helps push it down onto that carrier sheet, that plastic lining, and then I'll pick this up and go through and slowly peel this away. So that's another tip for you. You got to be careful when you've got like S's and shapes that have more curves on them. And then of course you've got your little pieces in here that you'll need to pick up. Sometimes they're big enough you can get it out with the weeding tool. It works great. Other times what I do is I pick this whole thing up. See, like this is a small image where those little cuts are in the A's. Sometimes it's just as easy to peel it back. I'm just bending it over my finger. I'm not creasing it. I'm just slightly bending it and letting the edges of those pop up, and I'm able just to peel this right up. There we go. And I'll do the same thing for the center of that A. Now, I could use the weeding tool, but I found that this is easier and less strain on my eyesight to do it this way. So that's another way that you can weed when you have those little small letters. So don't be afraid to kind of bend this around and get those edges to pop up if you're having trouble grabbing it with your weeding tool. So that's just regular weeding. That is the traditional way to weed. The transfer tape has a liner on it, okay? And then there's the front of the tape, and you would peel that off. So I generally like to cut mine similar to the size of the shape I'm going to do, and then you're going to lay that on there, and then you will rub it on to the transfer tape. So once you get it on the transfer tape like this, then you'll flip this over and you'll peel off the back of the liner from the vinyl, and then you're ready to apply this to your project. So that is how you would get it ready to put on your project. So I'm just going to set this off to the side. So that's if you weeded it normally, okay? Now we're going to talk about reverse weeding. So over here you see this image, which is the same one I cut here, and you can see it has a lot of fine lines on here. Okay, and then when I weeded this the normal way, just like I did the It's and the marshmallow. Okay, but if you will notice up here where the little E is, there's very thin lines here, and I somehow ended up missing one of those little lines at the top of that E. Plus, it was a little difficult to go ahead and get this weeded. So when you have a font that's thin like that, or you have a lot of curves or on your shape or anything like that, that's when you might decide you want to do reverse weeding. So let me show you how to do that. Here is the shape. It says all I need is love and hot cocoa cut out. You can see it on there. And then I'm going to put this here in the center of my mat just so you guys can see it really well. And then I'm going to have a piece of transfer tape that I've cut about the same size. Okay, so you're going to take the transfer tape off before you've done any weeding. You're going to put the transfer tape over the entire image, and then you're going to use your scraper tool and you're going to really burnish this well onto the transfer tape. And you're going to lift both of those up off of your mat, and now you see the back of the liner for your vinyl. So we're going to peel this off the back of the vinyl, and now we have, this is the front of the transfer tape, and this is where you would read the image correctly or see it in the right orientation. But we're going to flip this over, and now this is the sticky back part of the vinyl. We're going to lay this on the mat. I highly recommend you put it on the mat. It makes it a little easier to do this. And then what we're going to do, now you're going to do the weeding technique just like we did, you saw me over here, except now we're doing it in reverse. So I'm going to pick up an edge. It doesn't really matter where you start. I do recommend that you have your scissors handy in case you start getting too much in your hand and you need to cut it away. So I always have my scissors right here. And now you're going to watch me just peel away the vinyl from around the letters. And it makes it much easier because they're stuck onto the transfer tape now. Now this is a slower process, and it will take you a little bit of time to go in and do this. And you just have to be patient with it and just kind of peel it up a word at a time. And when you have some intricate letters like these O's and the C's and stuff, you will need to go back in and take that out with your weeding tool. The letters are thin, so you want to make sure that you are catching it around the letters just like that. And then you're just going to slowly keep doing this until you get all of this off. So I'm getting quite a bit here to handle. And I could certainly just take my scissors and cut some of this off. So I'll show you how I do that. Make sure you're not cutting any of the words. I just cut away some of the vinyl that I've already peeled up. Just makes it a little easier as you start getting up here. The leg of that A came up just a little bit so I can catch that because it's super thin line. Getting there. It just takes a second to get it all up. I'm going to flip this around so I can see it a little easier. Okay, so I've got this much up, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this again. Okay, I think I've got it. All right, so now I'll flip this back around. So now we have the reverse weed. That's what this is called because it's still on the transfer tape. We already have it on the transfer tape. Let me lift up the edge here so I can show you. So it's already on the transfer tape. Okay, and we did get that little E up here that I was missing on the other one. Now, if you're not ready to go ahead and apply this to your project, all you need to do is keep the backing from your transfer tape because you can reuse your transfer tape, and go ahead and just lay this on the backing on the waxy side of the transfer tape backing. Lay that on there, and then you'll be able to use this and apply it to your project. So those are the two different ways to weed. I hope you guys found that helpful. Let me know if you have any questions.